Florida is a very unique place. It's a unique and special place, and it was unique and special 141 years ago when my family decided to move here, and it was a unique and special place whenever you and your family decided to move here. But if we don't do a better job at taking care of the great state of Florida, that specialness, that uniqueness that caused all of us to come here will be gone. So the real overarching goal of this book series is not just to teach Florida history. It's to instill in the next generation of Floridians a love and passion and knowledge about Florida that will serve our state as they grow up to be our next mayors and our next governors and our next state legislators. We're not teaching kids something that is far off in Never Never Land. This is not Harry Potter, it's not mystical, it's not fantasy land. This is real stuff. The place names, the rivers, the lakes, the cities, the characters, they're all real. In fact, this is entirely a true story. Unfortunately, it's a true story because it's the darkest environmental episode in the history of this country, probably the history of the world, where man had the worst environmental impact ever. And that's a pretty important story to tell in today's world as well.
The Last Egret takes the kids on a journey through Florida history. So last year we implemented the book. We had the author come to our school actually and speak to the children. And we did a series of activities. So we explored both Florida history. We explored writing. We wrote about Florida history. We included some science. We included reading. So it's kind of a whole scope of what we teach in fourth grade.
The Last Egret is a perfect opportunity for us to teach the story of Ivy and Frank Stranahan and the beginning of Fort Lauderdale. It is the story of a child growing up in South Florida. And as we work with the 3rd and 4th graders and even 5th graders in Broward County, we can give them a story of someone their own age as they grew up here in pioneer times. And we like to bring them here and take them back into time and be pioneers. So it's a beautiful relationship between the book and the house and a great way for us to teach the story.
We do programming at Bonnet House for the school kids, and basically what we do is we teach them about the ecosystems here in Florida and what they can do to help preserve the ecosystems in Florida, along with the birds. Bonnet House is a 35-acre estate, and we have 5 different ecosystems. We are the last of the untarnished barrier island between Gumbo Limbo and John Lloyd Park.
The Museum of Discovery and Science has been a big part of the school system for close to 40 years. And we do a lot of environmental education. So the Last Egret books have to do with the Everglades. We specialize in Everglades education. And we have a lot of live animals. We have some threatened species and endangered species. And the majority of the animals we have in our museum are native animals. We also have some exotic species that are threatening some of our native species in there. We can teach about the flora and the fauna in South Florida in general. And so it fits right into the books because the kids can come to the museum and they can see some of the animals that they read about in the books live. And we also work with our animals so they can touch them and get an up-close and personal experience with them. We have also a lot of exhibits that have to do with the Florida water story and the Everglades and the water and how that affects the people that live in South Florida. So we can also do a lot with the kids that come and teach them about how important the Everglades and the water in the Everglades is to our community.
The kids are really excited when they're here. It's something that they don't necessarily get to experience in everyday life, and sometimes we even have them washing clothes. They'll make butter. They really get to experience what pioneer times is like, and they love it. They love that experience to be able to touch and feel and taste that it's different than just sitting in a classroom and learning. So they really do learn. They become a part of it, and most of them were born here, so it is their history, and they realize that.
The children will see an anhinga dive down into the water to catch a fish. They'll see turtles coming up. They'll see little fish in there. They'll see bigger fish and bigger fish in there. So they get to see and interact with the food chain.
I think that the Last Egret book, reading the book and getting out to some of these facilities and learning about our Everglades is critical to our kids that live here, because if the future of the Everglades is if we're going to preserve the Everglades and we want it to be around, the kids are the ones that are going to have to do it.
As a fourth grade teacher, it's all about Florida history. This book touches on so much of the Florida history. It talks about Stranahan House. It talks about the Seminoles and what was going on. It deals with hurricanes. You know, what happened is there was a hurricane that came through. It deals with the environment, the birds in our ecosystem. There's just so many components that you can draw together with that one book and share with the kids. It's a great, all of our kids loved it. They really enjoyed the entire aspect of all the different parts we studied. So I would say go for it. It's a great way to introduce history, writing, science, character building, that kind of stuff into their curriculum.